Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so the next program in chapter 4 is bar chart. Alright, so write a program that asks the user to enter today's sales for 5 stores. The program should display a bar chart comparing each store's sales. Create each bar in the bar chart by displaying a row of asterisks. Each asterisk should represent $100 of sales. Here is an example of the program's output. Okay, so this is going to be the output. So the program is going to ask the user to enter the sales for 5 stores. So these are the sales. For example, store 1, made $1,000 of sales, and the way this is going to be displayed is by basically each $100 out of this $1,000 is one asterisk. So for example, 1,000 asterisks. If you divide it into 100 equal pieces, you'd get 10. So in other words, display 10 asterisks. 1,200 if you divide it. It's correct. 1,200 if you divide it into 100 different pieces, you get 12. So in other words, print 12 asterisks. The same thing for this, the same thing for this, the same thing for that. Divide each of them by 100 to get the number of $100 divisions, and prints that number of asterisks for the store, and that's basically the chart. So let's start the program and we'll get a better understanding of it. So go ahead and create a class, and I'll call it bar chart, and the main method. Okay, so the program says that we should write a program that asks the user to enter today's sales. So because we're going to be asking for user input, we need to use one of Java's features for accepting inputs from the users, from the user. And in this case, I'm going to use the JOption pane. I can choose to use a scanner, but I'm just choosing to use the JOption pane because in the previous question, I think I used I use a scanner. So I'm mixing it around. Sometimes I use a scanner, sometimes I use the JOption pane. But this one, I'm going to use the JOption pane. Okay, so in order to use the JOption pane, you need to import it. So that this program can have access to the JOption pane class. So I'm going to go ahead and import it by typing javax.swing.swing.joption pane. Okay, now with the JOption pane, we don't have to declare an object, unlike the scanner. With the scanner you have to create an object, but with the JOption pane you don't have to declare an object. So we just use it. Alright, so let's see what's next here. So we should ask the user to enter today's sales for 5 stores. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go ahead and ask the user to enter the sales for 5 stores, and we are going to do that with a loop. So I'm going to create a for loop over here, and like this, a for loop, and I'm going to initialize the variable int. I'm going to call it store, and I'm going to initialize it to 1. So we are starting from store 1 all the way to store 5 and accepting sales for each store. So as long as the store is, I'm tempted to change it to store number, but we will know store is just representing which store. Okay, so I'll just keep it at store. So as long as store is equal to 1, as long as there's store is equals to 1, I've initialized the store to 1. As long as the variable store is less than or equal to 5. Now let me go ahead and initialize or declare a variable and initialize it to 5. Then that variable is going to be the number of stores. So just to keep the program organized. So I'm going to go up here and declare a variable. It's going to be an int variable, and I'm going to call it number of stores, and it's going to be equal to 5. So instead of saying as long as store is less than or equal to 5, I'm just going to say as long as store is less than or equal to number of stores. So basically, start from store 1, and as long as the store is less than or equal to number of stores, do what's in this loop. And before you go back up and check to see if store is less than or equal to number of stores, increment or add 1 to store. So store plus plus. So basically, start from 1, and as long as test to see as long as 1 is less than or equal to the number of stores, do what's in the loop and increment store by 1, and then so basically this loop is going to run the number of stores times. Okay, so if the number of stores is 5, the number of stores is 5, then it's going to loop 5 times through all the stores, and it's going to loop as long as store is less than or equal to number of stores, and store is incremented each time the loop iterates. Okay, so each time we go through a loop, we're going to do a couple of things. So first, we're starting from 1, and then we are looping all the way to number of stores. What we want to do is we want to ask the user to enter the sales for that particular store. So remember, this value is keeping track of the stores. It's being incremented by 1 each time. So we are asking the user to enter the sales for each particular store. So I'm going to use the GOptionPanes show input dialog to accept that input from the user. So GOptionPane dot show inputs dialog, and I'm going to ask I'm going to basically type it just like this: enter today's sales for store 1. So enter today's sales for store. Now instead of typing store 1, it wouldn't make sense, because each time the loop runs, it's going to say enter today's sales for store 1 for store 1. I have the sorry about the cough. I have the number of the store stored in this variable store, so I can basically use it. So the first time it's going to run, store is going to be equal to 1, so it's going to say enter today's sales for store 1, and then 1 is going to be incremented again, and it's going to change to 2, so it's going to say enter today's sales for store 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now it's going to ask enter today's sales for store 1, and then for store 2, store 3, it's going to increment to number of stores, basically. All right, so once you ask the user, we need to basically accept that input. Now with the everything that GOptionPanes show input dialog returns is a string. So even if the user enters the sales, let's say $1,000, that $1,000, that $1,000, not $1,000, but $1,000 pretty much, $1,000. So that 1,000 is going to, even though that 1,000 is a number, that 1,000 is going to be returned as a string. It's not going to be returned as a number. That's how the GOptionPanes show input dialog works. It always returns a string. So we need to go ahead and if we need that number, for example, in calculations or to really test on it, we have to convert it or change it to a number. But first, we need to accept the user's input. First, we need to accept the user's input as a string like that, and then go ahead and convert it. So I'm going to go ahead and create another string variable. Not another string. This is the first one. So I'm going to go ahead and create a string variable. I'm going to call it user string output. I'm sorry, not output. User string input. User string input is basically going to store what the user types here, as because it always returns a string. So user string input is now going to store what the user types, but whatever is returned here is returned as a string. So we need it to be a number so we can really use it in our program. So the way to convert it to a number, now this is in this case the user can type in, now it just so happens that these numbers are all like integers, like whole integers. Basically integers. Integers, yeah. So, but the thing is, in a real world program, someone can type in $1,000.50 or something, or $1,000.50. Someone can do that. So let's go ahead and declare that variable that's going to hold the sale amount to a double. Let's go ahead and do that. So once the user types in this, okay, remember it's first a string. We need to go ahead and convert it to a double, okay, and store it in a double variable. So I'm going to go ahead and convert this to a double, and I do that with one of one of the methods in Java's wrapper classes to do that. So double dot pass double, and what I'm passing to a double is the content in user string input. Okay, so what I'm passing to a double is user string input, and once I pass the user string input to a double, I need a place to store it. So I'm going to go ahead and declare a variable. Since we are passing this as a double and returning it as a double, we need a double variable to hold it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a double variable, and I'm going to call it store sales. This variable is going to hold the sales of each store each time the loop runs. So store sales, it's going to be stored here. But now this is going to be stored as a double. Okay, so now we have the sales. Okay, we have the sales of the store. So what we need to do is we need to basically find how many times that number of sales divide into 100 pieces. So if it's 1,000, we need to find how many equal, not equal, but how many $100 pieces can we get from it. So if it's 1,000, if we divide it by 100, we'll get 10. We'll get how many $100 divisions are in that number, or in that sale or sales. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and create a variable that's going to hold that number for us. Okay, so I'm going to declare a variable is going to be an integer. Okay, it's going to hold the number. Actually, this variable is going to be a long one. I'm going to name it long. Okay, so just because I like doing that sometimes. So I'm going to call it number of $100 divisions. I know it's a long one, I know, but if you're not comfortable with it and you want to create a short name, feel free. As long as it makes sense to you, that's fine. But I like to name it long. I mean, not long, but this is what came to mind. So I don't mind using it. So this variable number of $100 divisions, I'm going to go ahead and copy it. Okay, it's going to store the store sales, okay, divided by 100, and that's going to give us how many $100 divisions we can get from that sale. Okay, that number, the number of $100 divisions is how many times we're going to print the asterisk, basically, because it said print an asterisk for each $100 division. So if the user types in 1,000 and we get a 10 for $100 number of $100 divisions, then print 10 asterisks, to each of them representing $100. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to create a loop, another loop inside this loop. It's going to be a for loop, and I'm going to initialize a variable. It's going to be an integer. I'm going to call it print asterisk. I'm going to call it print asterisk, and I'm going to initialize it to 1. Okay, so basically I'm starting from 1. Okay, this print asterisk is just keeping track of how many asterisks I'm going to print. Okay, so I'm starting from 1, and as long as print asterisk is less than or equal to number of $100 divisions, okay, it's equal to number of $100 divisions, do what's in the loop, and before you come back up and check to see if print asterisk is less than or equal to number of $100 divisions, add 1 to print asterisk. So we are initializing print asterisk from 1. We know how many times we should print the asterisk. That's the number of $100 divisions, and we are starting from 1. Okay, and then we are going all the way to number of $100 divisions. Okay, and each time, as long as the number of $100 divisions is less than or equal to the number of as long as the print asterisk is less than or equal to the number of $100 divisions print an asterisk and add 1 to print asterisk here. So now print asterisk is going to be, so basically this loop is going to loop however many times number of $100 divisions is, okay? So in each time we loop, okay, we loop this is how many times, how many hundred, it's going to loop, like I said, how many number of $100 divisions there are. So each time we do that, let's go ahead and print an asterisk, okay? But we are using the G option pane, so we need to find a way to print this. We need to use the G option pane to show a message dialog. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another string, okay, that's going to hold the entire output. So I'm going to create a string, I'm going to call it output. Initially I'm going to initialize it to nothing, a string that contains nothing. And then we are going to form an output, form a full string, and then display it at the end in the J option pane show message dialog method. Okay, so this string is going to, we are going to concatenate it to the string, join basically strings to the string to form the full result or the full output, and we're going to display this variable output in the J option pane show message dialog method. All right, so first of all, like I said, okay, so over here in the loop, anytime this loop runs, we want to go ahead and print asterisk, because this loop is going to run however many times the number of $100 divisions there are, based on the sales that the person or the user typed. Okay, so if that's the case, then let's go ahead and print an asterisk. But we're going to print it differently. We're going to add that asterisk to this list. But before we start joining this asterisk to this list, let's go ahead and create the header. Let's go ahead and create this header. We want the output to look like this. So let's go ahead and create this header, because we want to use only this variable output to form the whole entire string like this, and then display it in the J option pane show message dialog method. So let's go ahead and create this header. This header, initially the string contains nothing, but I'm going to start it off with sales bar chart. That's how it's going to start. So sales bar chart. And that's basically what the first thing that's going to be in a string. And I'm going to add a new line character, which is basically going to break that line to the next line. So whatever that follows this string is going to follow, or whatever that comes after this string here is going to follow on the next line. Okay, so now we have sales bar chart in output. So we want to display store 1 and then colon and then a number of times of asterisk. So right before we start joining the asterisk, let's go ahead and add or concatenate to the output string and say, now to concatenate, you can either do this. You can say output is going to be equal to, you know what, I'm going to change output to output string, okay, and I'm going to change, I'm going to change the variable name to output string, because I think it sounds better, or it looks and sounds better that way. Okay, so I'm going to change this to output string. Okay, so I'm going to say to concatenate something, you can concatenate a string to this output string. You can either do this. You can say output string is equal to, now output string concatenated with something. Okay, you can do that. Or you can just simply say output string concatenated equals something. Okay, so now it's like, it reads like what you are concatenating to this string is equal to what you're going to type on the right. Okay, so what you're concatenating to this string is equal to what you're going to type on the right. Okay, so now because it's a string, the plus sign is going to concatenate to it. All right, so now we have sales bar charts in the string. What we want to display now is the store 1. Okay, let's do that. Let's go ahead and display the number of the store. So I'm going to concatenate store space. Let me see how it displays basically. So store space and the number of the store. Now remember, this variable is keeping track of the number of the store. The same way we use it here, we can go ahead and use it here, because each time the loop runs, it keeps track of which store number. So let's use that variable. I'm going to concatenate with a variable number. The variable which keeps track of the store number. So it's going to, for the first time, it's going to read store 1. Second time, it's going to read store 2. Next time, it's going to read store 3, and so on. So I'm displaying store and then the store number with a colon. So I'm going to concatenate it with another string, a colon here, and then now we can put a space and then go ahead with asterisk. So I'm going to terminate the string, and over here in the loop is how many times 100 divisions there are. That's how many asterisks, how many asterisks we have to print. So as it's looping, let's print an asterisk. But again, this is how we are printing our output. We are concatenating to this output string. So we already have sales bar chart. We already have the store, and then the store number, the header, colon. Now we just have to print how many asterisks. Now all this is a loop, so it's going to interact with each other. So let's go ahead and concatenate to output string an asterisk like this and terminate it. And once we are done with asterisk over here, once we are done printing it in the loop, how many ever times, we want to break it to the next line. So we can't do it in this loop. I don't want to do it in this loop, otherwise we're going to break, we're going to have, each asterisk display. If I do this, for example, it's going to display each asterisk on another line, and I don't want that. I want it to finish displaying the asterisk on one line like this, and then when you're done, break it to the next line, so that the next time it runs, we're going to have another store header, the number of times of asterisks. So now we are done with printing the number of asterisks on a line. After we are done with that loop, which prints the number of asterisks on a line, go ahead and concatenate a new line to the output string. So I'm concatenating a new line, which is \n. So \n together, these two combined together is a new line character, which is basically going to take the cursor to the next line, and whatever follows this string is going to display on the next line. It's going to display where the cursor is. So yeah, it basically creates a new line, and then or the next line. So now after we are done with this, we will have everything displayed nicely. So let's try it and see what it looks like. Anytime you use the G option pane, one more thing, we have to display it, and I didn't terminate this line, so I'll terminate this line, and we have to display it. So after this is the inner loop, and this is the outer loop. So after everything, let's go ahead and display it using the G option pane's show message dialog. So G option pane dot show message dialog, and G option pane dot show message dialog takes two arguments. So the first one is null, which is the first one I'm going to type null, which is basically going to center the window on the screen, and the second argument is what you want to display. In this case, I don't want to display like a string I'm going to type right now, like this. I'm not going to display a string right now. I have everything in output string. I have everything after this loop. Everything interacts with each other with this loop. These two loops. I can go ahead. Everything will be stored in output string, and I can go ahead and just display output string. So we're done with that, with displaying the result. The last thing is, anytime you use the G option pane, you have to call the system dot exit method, and I'm going to pass in a 0. System dot exit basically terminates an extra thread, that is started anytime the G option pane is used. So it terminates that, and I'm passing in 0 so that it's basically a return value, and basically when I try to receive this return value in a variable, I can test on that value to see if it was 0, if 0 was returned. And if 0 was returned, it's an indication that this program runs successfully, reached this line, and returned 0. It's an indication that the program runs successfully. So yeah, so now we're done. Let me go ahead and compile this and run it and see what happens. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it bar chat, and is it bar chat? Yeah, bar chat, and then save it here. Okay, we have a couple of errors. Let's see. So it says not a statement. This line is something that's not a statement here. Let's see. Okay, so I was supposed to print anytime we initialize and print asterisk to 1. as long as print asterisk is less than or equal to number of $100 divisions. Let's increase print asterisk to 1 after it's done with what's in the loop. So initialize print asterisk to 1 as long as print asterisk is less than or equal to number of $100 divisions. Do what's in the loop, and before you come back up and check if print asterisk is less than or equal to number of $100 divisions, increase print asterisk to 1. And so I forgot the plus. All right, so I'm going to compile it, and we have another error. Let's see, possible loss of precision. So let's see what's happening. Number of $100 divisions is an integer, and where is it? And store sales is double, and 100. Okay, so basically, store sales is a double divided by 100. This is going to result. This is very like this is going to result in a double. Okay, sometimes it's going to result in a double. But the thing is, this number of $100 divisions, okay, is an integer. Okay, so it can only store integers because this is returning a double. This evaluation is returning a double, and this is declared as an integer. It's only going to store what's before the decimal and throw away anything after the decimal because it can only store integers. So it's telling you that you it's very possible you lose anything after decimal points. You lose the data, or you won't get the accurate value. If it's 2.5, it's only going to store 2 because it was declared as an integer, and it's going to throw away anything after the decimal point. So it's telling you that you could lose that. You can lose that value, so your program won't be accurate. So fix it. So what I want to do is, because this is going to return to this is just a number of $100 divisions. If the person enters $1,000 and $1,090, okay, $1,090. When you divide it, you're going to get, let's say, 10 point something. Okay, 10 point something. We only want the ones that are the $100 divisions. So we don't really, according to this program, we don't really care about any remaining. It has to be exactly one perfect $100 division. So before we can print it. So even if it's 10.9, we only want to store the whole or the proper $100 divisions. We only want to print in 10 times because we could get accurately 10 whole $100 divisions. The $90 wasn't up to $100 yet, so we can't count it as one asterisk, okay, or one $100 division. So we don't really care about that. So if you get a decimal here, let's round the whole thing. I'm going to surround the whole thing with parentheses and then round it to an integer because this can only store an integer. So if we get a decimal, let's round it to an integer and then store it here ourselves. And I apologize for the cough, I'm sorry. So let's round it here, and we can do that with typecasting. The way to convert this result is going to result in a double. So the way to convert this double that's going to be returned to an integer is by surrounding the word int in parentheses in front of what you want to convert to an integer. So let me take the highlight off. I'm surrounding int in parentheses, and I'm placing that in front of what I want to convert to an integer, and I'm storing it in a variable that can hold an integer, so that should be fine. So I'm going to compile it, and we don't have any errors now. So I'm going to run it and see what happens. So everything should look just like this. Okay, so let me go ahead and cancel this, and this is not an error. This is just because we didn't create code for any time we click cancel. So that's why this is that. We didn't create any code for when we click cancel. That's why. All right, so I'm going to hit run and hide this. Okay, so it's going to look just like this. So I'm going to just emulate this here. So I'm going to enter today's sales for store 1. I'm going to type 1,000. Hit enter. Enter today's sales for store 2, 1,200. Hit enter. For store 3 is 1,800. For store 4 is 800. And for store 5 is 1,900. So 1900, and hit enter. And it looks just like that. The bar chart looks just like that. So we have the header we have the store 1, it prints 10 times, and store 2 prints 12 times because it's 1200. So yeah, it looks just the same, and this is going to print also. That it looks just the same. It's accurate. It's accurate. So this is going to print 18 times. This is going to print 8 times. This is going to print 19 times basically. Okay, so it works. If you have any questions, please comment down below in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next program. Bye bye.